Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Meredith E. Phillips. I'm a writer, reader, and bunny mama. Today, I wanted to share with you my top 5 favorite characters from novels. It was interesting as I started compiling this list. There were definitely some characters that popped into mind immediately and others I kind of had to mull over, but it ended up that there is a really wide variety of genres represented in this list, which I was kind of surprised about. But here they are. I'm going to share my top 5. I'm saving my favorite for last because I'm going to fangirl over him a lot, but the other 4 are in no particular order. The character that has been my favorite for the longest is Jane Eyre from Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. I read this book for the first time when I was in 8th grade, and it's not exactly the type of book that I would normally hand to an 8th grader. It's a little more detailed. It is older, so it's written in an older type of style, but I connected so much with Jane and with her character and with her story. Of course, if you've read the book, you know, or seen any of the movies or film adaptations, you know that the beginning of the book starts with Jane as a young girl. She's about 10 years old at the beginning of the story. And at the time, in 8th grade, I was 13 when I read it, so I was a little older than her, but still young enough to remember being that age, and the amount of injustice that she puts up with and the frustration and anger that is growing inside her as a child was so relatable to me. She's an outsider, nobody cares about her, and even though I came from a family where I was very much loved and taken care of, I did have friends, I wasn't neglected like she is in the novel, something about her as the outsider really resonated with me at that young age. Even back then, I had a lot of interests and hobbies that were not necessarily what like the cool and popular kids were into. And so I didn't feel like I had a whole lot of friends that could share in those really sort of niche interests. Even though Jane doesn't face that type of adversity, she faces much worse things. Something about her being the one that is sort of on the outskirts of the peer group was something I could relate to a lot. As I grew up, I reread the book multiple times throughout high school and college, and at each different age that I read this book, I was able to get something different out of it. Jane, of course, grows up and you meet her later on as a young adult, an 18-year-old who is kind of going out into the world for the first time. She's quiet and she's reserved, but she also is going to stick up for herself and she doesn't let anybody walk all over her. I loved how strong a character she was when she finds out about Mr. Rochester's betrayal. The way she deals with that, to me, was just a perfect example of a strong and resilient woman. And she was very much somebody, she still is somebody that I look up to as a role model in a lot of ways. This is my favorite book of all time. I actually haven't reread it in quite some time, so I'm probably overdue for a reread. And I have quite a few copies of the book that I could choose from. I have my original copy. I don't remember exactly when I got this. I think probably in early high school. But as you can see, I've got tape all over the edges. It's very yellowed, it's, you know, the spine is broken a million times and I just love it. The cover's torn. I also have a slightly nicer version of the cover and it's just a gorgeous cover. Look at this. So beautiful. And the back is also, I love this illustration. It's so perfect. And I feel like the illustration and the style is very representative of the mood and the atmosphere of the book itself. And then, very special, I also have my grandmother's copy of Jane Eyre. My mom recently sent this to me so that I could have it since it's my favorite book and it was my grandma's favorite book too. This copy too obviously has been read and loved. There's a lot of tape in it and you can see on this page here, my grandmother got it from her sister in 1950. Now this copy of the book is older than 1950, but that's when she received it as a gift. And the thing I really love about this is it smells like my grandma's house. So I love this book. It would not be a complete Grammy book if it did not have the ubiquitous rubber band around it. She put rubber bands around everything. And it also still has the original little baggie that she kept it in, which is also very Grammy. So to keep it safe, I keep it like this on the shelf, and it preserves the smell as well. My next favorite character in novels is Pippin from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I love Pippin so so much, so much. And I was first introduced to this story in 2001 when the first movie came out. We went to see it in December. That's when it had been released into theaters. I was obsessed with this movie from that first viewing. I loved it, and I loved Pippin's character immediately. He was my absolute favorite. I saw that movie 8 times in the theater. Peter Jackson, for some reason, thought I was gonna wait a whole year to find out what happened. No, I went out and I bought these books, these really beat up, crummy, like paperback mass market kind of book, and I read the entire trilogy in 9 days. We had gone back to school at that point, and I read them all in 9 days. I was obsessed all through high school. My friends and I bonded over the movie franchise. It was actually a really important, really special part of my high school experience. But Pippin, of all the characters, was my absolute, for sure, favorite. I love that he and Mary at the beginning especially are kind of these big goofballs. They don't really get what's going on. They're following after Frodo because they like Frodo. They're friends with Frodo. They're loyal to him. They want to help him because they're friends. They do not understand in any capacity the severity of the situation that they're getting themselves into or the danger that they're putting themselves in. They just sort of go along with it. So even though he starts the movies, of course, and in the books also, he starts out as this sort of really goofball character. He's the comic relief in a lot of the situations, but he transforms into a hero by the end. In the movies, they cut out the burning of the Shire portion of the books, but in the book, in the 3rd book, he actually is one of the ones who really helps save the Shire at the end. To me, he was the character that was the most real. You have Frodo, who has this intense focus on destroying the ring. You have Sam, who has this intense loyalty to Frodo. You have characters like Aragorn and Legolas, who are just these like war heroes, and they're amazing, and they're just like larger than life kind of characters. And they're awesome. They're great characters, but there's not a lot that I feel like you can personally relate to. Like, have I ever saved the world? No, I haven't. But Pippin is just sort of this normal character. He's a normal, down-to-earth little hobbit, and he's thrust into this crazy situation that he has to try to adapt to. So to me, he was the most relatable one in the whole series. I was so obsessed with him that when I got these books, I went through and I highlighted, I don't know if you can see it, it's green highlight. I highlighted every single time he did anything. I highlighted his name in every single one of these books because I was crazy. Good work for me, I guess. He is my favorite character from the Lord of the Rings trilogy and one of my favorite characters of all time. The next character I want to talk about is George Crabbe, the Duke of Stanbrook from Only Beloved by Mary Balogh. I love George more than any other romance hero of any book. He's my favorite. I love him. I think the reason that his character works so well in this final book, Only Beloved is the final book in a 7-book series by Mary Balogh called The Survivors. And because you've gotten to see George and his character throughout the entire series, by the time you get to that final book, you already know and love him and are loyal to him as a character from page 1. And he is just the best. He's the ultimate good guy who has a dark past. He's been so disappointed in his own life, and yet what does he do? He's reaching out to these other people who are hurting and trying to help them. So he's just the best. Oh my gosh. This is the only book, by the way, that I do not have an actual physical book of. I have it as an ebook. I have read this ebook a lot of times. It's a lot of times. I love the whole story, but I really love him as a character. He's strong-willed, but he's quiet and reserved. He's a great listener. He's never pushy about what he thinks other people should do. He listens, he lets them come to conclusions, he encourages people. He's just the best. He's the best. So highly encourage you to check out that series if you have not already. The next character I want to talk about is from Leigh Bardugo's Six of Crows duology, and it is, of course, Kaz Brekker, Bastard of the Barrel, Dirty Hands. He's awesome. What a great character. If you love morally great characters, this is the man for you. Kaz is ruthless. He is out for himself in a lot of situations. He wants money, he wants fame, he wants power. There's a lot about him that is not good. He's greedy and he's not ashamed of it. And yet, there is a deeper side to Kaz Brekker, which is why we all love him. And that is that he loves so fiercely his friends, and he doesn't ever say it, he only shows it. Within all of this obsessive greed and ruthless behavior, you see glimpses of this very human, very hurt heart. And throughout the 2 books in this duology, which Leigh Bardugo said she is thinking about writing a 3rd book. We need a 3rd book. I need a 3rd book, okay? Throughout this series, Kaz does a lot of things, and he says a lot of things that make you think that he's ruthless and does not care about anybody but himself. But it's not true. His actions show something different. He goes out of his way to help people that he cares about. Seeing the flashbacks with him as a younger child with his older brother and all of the struggles and desperate situations that they go through, all of the horror that he witnesses, and all of the other events that make him who he is as an older teen really makes you sympathetic to him. You know that he has goodness in him even if he tries to cover it up, and that's what makes him a great character. These books are gorgeous. Are you kidding me? Look at this. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom. If you haven't read these books, I don't care what kind of book you normally would reach for, read these books. They're so good. Such a great cast of characters too. Okay, so we're here at my number 1, and this is absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, my favorite character in any book, movie, TV show, or any other storytelling device platform that you want to suggest to me. He's my favorite character ever, and that is, of course, Sturmhond from Leigh Bardugo's Shadow and Bone and the King of Scars duology. I love this character so much. I would probably die for him if he needed that. I'm here. You first meet Sturmhond as Sturmhond. He has other names too. I'm trying not to get too spoilery if you haven't read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which you totally should. He's absolutely the best part of this trilogy. Like, please. There's some other questionable elements in here, but he's gold. You first meet him in Siege and Storm, and from the first moment he walked onto the page, I was like, who is this? I love him already. He's the best. The witty banter, the sarcasm, the jokes, it's gold! He's perfect! In my mind, he's sort of 50% Errol Flynn as Robin Hood.
Why, you speak treason.
Fluently.
25% Captain Jack Sparrow.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
But you have heard of me.
And 25% John McClane from Die Hard.
I was always kind of partial to Roy Rogers, actually. I really like those sequin shirts. Yippee-ki-yay, mother.
Is there a better character combination? There isn't. You can't convince me that there is something else better than that. Please. Leigh Bardugo, of course, graced us with his presence in this trilogy, and then she announced that she was going to do a duology with him as the main character. In this trilogy here, he's sort of a side character. He's definitely not one of the main people you read about, but he's so fantastic. He obviously needed his own story. So she has a duology that she is in the middle of, and we are not patiently awaiting book 2, which comes out next March, just in time for my birthday. So I'm very excited, but also very nervous about what she's going to do to him potentially in that story. So King of Scars came out in 2019, and we're getting the follow-up to this one in 2021. Ugh, so long to wait. And of course I have the Barnes & Noble exclusive edition, and I also have the British edition for reasons. I needed both, obviously. So a little story time. I am gonna get into a tiny bit of a spoilery section here. So if you do not want spoilers, skip to the little timestamp I'll put here and you won't be spoiled for the Six of Crows duology. However, this is a pretty minor spoiler. I think it's not really that big a deal. I flippin' lost my mind though. So skip to this timestamp if you don't want any spoilers whatsoever. But if you'd like to hear a story about me freaking out about this character, continue watching. So when the synopsis for Crooked Kingdom was released a couple months before the book came out, it had a line in it that said something about like nations converge on Ketterdam to do some stuff or whatever. Sturmhond is not in this duology. He was not in the first book, Six of Crows. I didn't expect him to be in the second book because he had nothing to do with the story. But when I read the line about people converging on Ketterdam, I was like, it might be Sturmhond. It could be Sturmhond. He could come join the fun. Please, please. So I picked up this book like the day it came out, obviously, and I had to read it either after work or on my lunch break. And I was reading the book definitely for the Six of Crows characters because it's a fantastic cast, great story. I was totally engrossed in it. But I was also reading like, is he gonna be in the book? Is he gonna be in the book? I gotta know. So I got like halfway through. There was nothing, like no even hint that he was gonna show up. 2/3 of the way through, I'm getting a little desperate. Like, could she really have written this and not put him in it? Like, is she really gonna do that to me? Oh my gosh. I was at lunch at work reading this book. I got to a point where the characters in this book are going to this secret meeting and there's gonna be some other secret people there. And I was like, if he's gonna be in the book, he's gonna show up at this secret meeting. I know it. So I continued reading, turned the page, and there he was at this meeting. I lost my mind. The high-pitched noises coming out of my mouth were pretty incredible. My coworkers were like,
"Are you dying? Like, what is going on in there?"
I couldn't even read the scene because I was so excited. I was like dancing around in the break room. They probably thought I was nuts. But it took me so long to like calm down enough to just read the scene, and then I had to reread it because I could only like contain so much of it. I was so excited. So anyway, those are my top 5 favorite characters from novels. I would love to hear about your favorite characters. So let me know about your favorite characters in the comments below. I'd love to hear it, and if I haven't read the book that they're in, I'd love to put it on my TBR list. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. I post videos on Tuesdays and Fridays. You can also find me over on Instagram at Meredith Phillips Writes. Thanks everyone, bye. I remembered to turn the mic on. Hey! I read this book for the first time. As I was making this list, I realized that there's a really big echo in this